So we have two main programs that we, inshallah, want to highlight in the students of those programs. One is the associate program, which is perhaps, you could say, the baby of Miftaah. It's our flagship program that when we started Miftaah, the goal was, we already had our full-time boarding seminary called Michigan Islamic Institute that many of you may have heard of, where these young students come from all across the country and they live on the campus for the entire year. And they're staying there for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Like my brothers and I and so many other mashayikh like Sheikh Farhan went to study abroad. So this school that we have fulfilled that necessity and filled that need. It was our dream to open a school that could fill that void in America. So but as we started it, a few years into it, we realized that the niche that we are fulfilling and the niche that we are hopefully filling the void of is necessary. But there are many youngsters, students, professionals that wish to learn knowledge and should learn knowledge. Even if that thirst is not within them, we need to create it. Because learning knowledge isn't an option, it's a necessity of life. And the moment we think it's an optional thing, we'll treat it like a nafil. It's an optional thing. But the reality is, the Prophet says, طَلْبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمَ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. That this pursuit of knowledge is obligatory. It's compulsory for every single person, to some degree, to some extent. Not everyone has to become a scholar, but everyone has to be a student of knowledge. Not everyone has to be a physician in the hospital, but everyone in the hospital is helping the patient. It could be the MA, it could be the nurse, it could be the NP, it could be the PA, it could be the PA, it could be the resident, it could be the physician. There's layers to it, but everyone's supporting the patient. And the reality is, when we live in a spiritual pandemic, everyone needs to support each other. It wasn't like in the Prophet's community that the moment you would become Muslim, you would have an internship to go through, you would have a set program and curricula that you would have to complete, and only after completing that, you would have the ability to go out and speak to people about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not how it was. The growth of Islam came because of the inclusivity of our beautiful system. Not inclusive based on ideals, inclusive based on who you are as an individual. We're the most inclusive system when it comes to where a person comes from, our backgrounds, our cultures, our ethnicities, our socio-economical backgrounds. But we are, by no mistake, we are the most exclusive system when it comes to ideals and values. Inclusivity is not a cop-out for compromise. Rather, it's a form of empowerment to support one another. So nonetheless, the community grew because the moment they would enter the community, they would start learning, and then they would teach right away. So the goal was, how can everyone learn, regardless of what type of commitment they can give? And that's where the idea of the 3-year program called the Associate Program began, based on the components of what Imam Ghazali rahimahullah has stated, that there are 6 sciences that everyone should learn to an intermediate level. And those 6 sciences, once again, are not optional. Everyone needs to learn them. If you're sitting here right now, you're a father of a student, a mother of a student, you should be proud, but you should think to yourself that how can I also learn? Because there's no such thing, and this is as cliche as it can get. Age is but a number. They lied. It's not. It's real, because you get old, your legs start hurting, right? Sheikh Farhan's like 55 years old. I'm just messing around. A few minutes ago I said he was 25. So you guys know he's between 25 and 55, somewhere there. It's a range. But really, for knowledge, age is but a number. Because anyone can come and learn. And that's the idea of Miftaah, that it's supposed to be the ultimate equalizer. That regardless of where you come from, which ethnicity you come from, which fraternity of Islam you connect with, which masjid you go to, it doesn't matter. Knowledge is pure. And something that is so pure will always benefit a person. Because it's naturally pure. And what we've done, and many a times, is something that is so pure, we don't have to keep repackaging it to make it look nice. It's naturally very beautiful. All we have to do is engage with it. And that's the beauty of knowledge. Adam alayhi salam was created. And for 40 days, his physical body was kept in a place where the angels of the heavens and Iblis were able to observe and to just gauge who he was. Because his creation was hyped up by Allah. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. That I'm making an ambassador on the earth, a vicegerent. So everyone was looking forward to, who is this creation? Who is this person? And the moment he was made and his physical body was created, and he was placed for people to see, where shaitan came and went through his body like how blood flows through our body, and they left in many ways rather unimpressed that this physical being is not overwhelming. He doesn't live the longest. He sure is not the most powerful. He doesn't perhaps have the longest lifespan. And in so many ways, he's so flawed. ضعيفة, هلوعة, جزوعة. He's hasty, he's weak, and how is he, or the creation of insan, so unique and impressive? And they're left with more questions than answers. And after 40 days, this same creation is endowed with what we call a soul. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. And the moment the soul was placed within this creation, everyone around recognized the worth of that body. Because a human being is not worthy, or a creation that is impressive, or a creation that is superior based on our external beings. But the moment the soul was placed within this creation, there was no angel that had to second guess the worth of this human being. Because a soul gives us value. And now since it gives us value, it needs to be kept, it needs to be nurtured. It must be cultivated. And the cultivation of this soul was given through what we call divine knowledge. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we taught Adam the knowledge of the names of Allah. All the names of Allah were taught to Adam. And when he learned who Allah was, today we talk about Iqra means education. And it's great to be able to use the ayah for education, but if you really sit back and think about, did Iqra really mean education? Or did it mean reformation? Like how Shaykh Farhan said. Did Iqra just mean to educate and to send our children to colleges and make them become who they wish to become? Is that what it really meant? And you take a step back and take an objective view at it. If Iqra meant educate, why was it so that 21 years later, in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet ﷺ cannot find his own name? He is still unlettered. My father, may Allah bless him, when he was speaking about education, he said, education, if Iqra meant education, how is it possible that the Prophet 21 years later doesn't know how to read his own name? Because it didn't mean education. It meant Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Knowledge was only knowledge because it was able to answer the important questions of life. You only know you've studied well because the questions on the exams that are given to you, you're able to answer them. And the bigger the exam, the more important the education. The most important question that a person will be asked is Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? And when a person is able to answer that question, that individual is educated. Because they've answered the most important question of life. That's Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. It's not education in the most surface level of it. Not everyone is included in that ayah. We can't sabotage the objective of that verse to fulfill the desire that we have for our children. The reality remains the reality. The knowledge that is pure is the knowledge of deen. And it allows a person to recognize who Allah is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-Rahman. And in this beautiful surah, He highlights the most important blessings of our life. In the Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah uses the word ala, not ni'mah. And the difference between ala and ni'mah is a ni'mah can be subjective. For one person, children can be a blessing. For another, it could be a burden. So Allah does not speak about children in Surah Ar-Rahman. Allah does not speak about wealth in Surah Ar-Rahman. Because it's a ni'mah. Allah doesn't call it an ala. He calls it a ni'mah. Because it's subjectively a blessing. But every single blessing that Allah speaks about in Surah Ar-Rahman is clearly a blessing that nobody could deny. The sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the oceans, the entirety of our ecosystem. All of that is mentioned in the surah. And it goes in order of importance. The most important blessing, and it goes down a sequence. And Allah highlights that all these blessings come because I am merciful to you. Ar-Rahman. It's not because you earned it, it's because I love you. ذِكْرُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ عَبْدَهُ زَكَرِيَّا. Zakaria, you're getting Yahya not because of your dua, because I'm merciful to you. The concept of knowledge, or the ability to attain knowledge, and when a person attains it, one of the first objectives of it that our teachers would mention is to remove a sense of entitlement and to make a person more grateful. And hence a person of knowledge becomes more grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because entitlement is a cancer of gratitude. It's like fire in water. No entitled person can ever be grateful. A child that is entitled can never be grateful to their parents. And a slave, like us, that is entitled to Allah can never be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says the first blessing is not خلق الإنسان. It's actually what? Ar-Rahman. I mean, if you're Daisy, everyone knows Surah Ar-Rahman, right? That's why I never want to read it in Taraweeh. Every time Taraweeh comes around and the person reading with me is like, why don't you read Surah Ar-Rahman? It's such a beautiful surah. I said, no, I'll pass because I'm afraid that one of the uncles in the back will correct me. I'm like, I don't want to get corrected. I have too much self-respect. I'd rather read like surah. No, I read surah, different surah. Nobody knows. But in every single time, that person who ends up reading Surah Rahman, he ends up making a mistake. I'm like, see, I told you. So he started Ar-Rahman. What's next? Allama al-Quran. What's next? Khalaqa al-insan. And then Allamahu al-bayan. The greatest blessing is the capacity that we have to learn the Quran. Because not knowing the Quran and not knowing the deen of Allah doesn't allow this human being to fulfill his objective. Khalaq al-insan is a byproduct of Allama al-Quran. And when a person understands that, they realize that their existence and their capacity of benefiting people is predicated upon their ability to understand the deen of Allah. Khalaq al-insan. Then a human becomes a human. And it doesn't stop there. Because the next step is Allamahu al-bayan. We didn't give you what we gave you so you could hoard it within your heart. But we gave you the ability to explain it very clearly so you could go tell the world about it. This is why we have this, very few people actually know this motto and Miftaah of education, preservation, and... Guys, come on man, don't do me dirty. Educate, let me try again. Bismillah guys. We are at Miftaah. I'm not in Virginia. The people in Virginia knew it. And we're sitting in Miftaah, we don't know it. It's called true love, But education, preservation, application. These were well thought through, semi. They just rhymed, so it worked out. But the hadith is نَضَّرَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا سَمِعَ مَقَالَتِي فَوَعَاهَا فَحَفِظَهَا فَبَلَّغَهَا. That Allah illuminates, brings radiance to a person's life and their face. Not their face specifically, just they're radiant because they use cream and fair and lovely, right? But radiant because their presence creates joy within people. It creates a sense of acceptance. It creates a sense of happiness. نَضَّرَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا. When someone sees this person, they feel good even though they're having a bad day. Like the Prophet ﷺ. Who is this person? سَمِعَ مَقَالَتِي. He learns the deen. فَوَعَاهَا فَحَفِظَهَا. He preserves it. فَبَلَّغَهَا. And he goes on and teaches it to others, and that is his form of application of it. May Allah make us amongst those that can do this. This was our 3-year program. And this started in the year of 2017. We only had brothers. Sheikh Abdullah went to Wayne State for an MSA program. The sisters came to him and said, Sheikh, why don't we have it for sisters? And this is when we were at our MI campus, right? And so we said, we don't really have space, but you know what, we'll start. And it started off as something very small, and it's still something very small. But the idea was, how can everyone have access to learning the deen of Allah and knowing that there's no excuse for saying no? There's a way to do it. Everyone just has to make time. There's no such thing as there's not enough time. There is such a thing called, I don't prioritize it. And that lack of prioritization means that I don't have enough time. That's just the way it works. So nonetheless, when we started the 3-year program, we didn't realize the benefit that we could have and everyone else could benefit from it. So we just pushed it and continued. This is our 3rd graduating batch. And it is the most important program in Miftaah because these students stay with us for 3 years. They're adults. I feel shy saying that there are students because they really are older than me. A lot of them. Those that are younger, you're my student for sure, right? But those that are older, I guess it is what it is. But the beauty of it is that there's anyone that walks in on Sundays and Tuesdays knows that just the chill vibe, the enjoyable feel, And the reason why this is the way it is because of the amazing students that come to Miftaah. They drive from Dearborn, from Kenton, from Troy, from Rochester, from Toledo, from Flint. Like, this is not normal. People taking out that much time to learn deen. This is not because of us. It's because knowledge is beautiful. And I promise you, it has nothing to do with the vessel. It has to do with the purity of the water. You could change the pipe and the effect will be the same. That's how beautiful the knowledge of deen is. But we're blessed that Allah has allowed us to be a vessel for it. And we hope that Allah does not deprive us of being amongst these beautiful gatherings in the future as well.